Thank you, Rajesh, Deepika, Reena, Neelam, Jayesh, all of you for joining the session. As you already know about me, I'm Gayathri Shankar. I have about close to 20 years of recruitment experience. So that's been primarily in leadership hiring across various companies and clients that I've dealt with. So today we are going to be speaking about interview skills for these are some things which you probably know. It is just that I have tried to put a structure to the entire process. So you would get a better sense of what I'm talking about in terms of the various things that you need to keep in mind when a person goes in for an interview. So, and this is essentially for candidates who are at an entry level, freshers, and even up to senior management. So, for everybody who is going in for an interview, this presentation is going to be useful. So we're going to be briefly touching upon a lot of aspects within this training session. So basically, this, like I said, is useful for anybody and everybody who's going in for an interview. So that could be, people who are currently, just with 1 or 2 years of experience to even senior management people. So that's the, training that we're talking about for professionals who are looking for a job. So the different kinds of interviews that I just the flow of the process would be like this. So we're going to be covering a lot of aspects in the interview stage. So I'm going to be covering about different kinds of interview, and then how you prepare for an interview, and things in mind, things that you need to keep in mind while having an interview, and the list of questions that you're going to be asking an interviewer, and then closing of the interview as well. So these are the various things. I'm sure each one of you are senior enough to understand how the interview process works, and I'm sure a lot of you have given interviews also yourself many times and taken interviews of people as well. So this would be more from a candidate perspective as to what all they need to keep in mind while going in for an interview. So just to give you a little bit of an overview about interviews per se. So there are several kinds of interviews that happen at a corporate level. So one is, of course, the personal interview, which most of you would be familiar with. Because that will be happening one-on-one between the interviewer and the interviewee. And basically, that would be, a list of questions that the interviewer would ask the candidate to elicit information from them in terms of what all they have done in the past, and what is the work that they have done, and how much of what kind of contributions they have had in the past experience in their organization. So that is the personal interview. And then there's something called the panel interview also, where they would be probably 2 to even 5 people in the panel. So that can be quite imposing for the candidate. So they'll need to, kind of be very confident while talking to a panel, because each one is going to be focusing on different things. And typically in a panel interview, what happens is they would like the candidates to have an interaction with people from different departments. So basically, for them to understand what really has the candidate done, and what is the kind of interaction that he would have with different departments. So basically, to understand his knowledge about various things, so they would have people coming from different departments participating in this panel interview, so that everybody is on the same page and is able to take a right call about hiring the person. So that was the panel interview. And then there is something called a structured interview as well, where the flow of the interview is pretty much structured. They would have probably questions which are pretty much similar to any interview situation, where they would ask about the background and experience of the person, and then what kind of achievements that they've had, and what kind of relevance is there for this particular job with whatever experience that they bring in. So these are the various things that they would cover in a structured interview. And about unstructured interview, it will be primarily based on the flow of the conversation. So they could be something they might have discussed within the interview, and based on that there might be more questions coming out, and there would be more open-ended questions that will be there. So that will be more like an unstructured kind of an interview. And stress interview is very interesting because stress interview is typically to gauge the person's ability to manage stress and ambiguity, and also is it, they would be able to kind of put the candidate in a spot and see how the person reacts and what is the kind of they I mean so basically to understand how they would react in a particular situation, in a stress situation. So that is pretty much the stress interview. So basically just to give you an example of a stress interview, so the candidate might be asked things like what is that you would be you have been an average student throughout your student life. So what is that you think would be the value add that you would give for this particular organization? Something which would make the candidate very uncomfortable. So I don't know if any of you have faced this kind of a stress kind of an interview earlier, but it is basically to put the candidate in an uncomfortable situation so that they're able to kind of elicit proper responses and see how. I would just request Kamlesh ji to.
हम लोगों का ग्रुप है, अच्छा तभी वो ग्रुप बनाए हैं तो एक एक लोग लेक्चर देते
You can mute it from your side, Gayathri.
लेक्चर दे रही है.
Okay, sure. So basically, so that's what stress interview covers. And then there is also something called interviews, which are based on a case study. So a lot of companies do these kind of case studies, that are there. So currently, if you look at the various organizations, they primarily look at case studies for people who are at a junior to mid management level. Senior levels, it's not so prevalent in terms of case studies, but they are also given certain situations to kind of come up with some kind of an understanding and analysis for some discussion further. So interview based on case study would be primarily some kind of a test or a case that will be given to the person. So it could be anything to do with probably if it's a marketing role, then it will be something related to the marketing assignment. For example, if there is a challenge in terms of digital marketing, so what kind of strategies that the person will come up as far as digital marketing is concerned, and giving a problem situation and asking the candidate to come up with solutions, or if it is probably a learning and development kind of a role, then asking the candidate to come up with certain strategies for a certain program that they are planning to devise and things like that. So it will be all different kind of case studies that will be there. And also in terms of practical task oriented interviews, so that's something which is very interesting because it's basically to demonstrate the candidate's skill towards demonstrating the candidate's skill in terms of their own expertise in a specific area. So it's primarily, if you look at software programmers, they are asked to do coding. And that's more like a practical test for them. And if it's a chef, then they are probably asked to make a recipe and demonstrate their skills. And if it's a fashion designer, they probably would be asking them to do some drawings and do it on paper and show it and things like that. So they're able to judge what is their way of thinking and how it will be useful and how they can actually translate to the role that they are being hired for. So that is how it is. And then video interviews, of course, we all are very familiar that with video interviews, because that's how the companies are doing the initial round of screening these days. So most companies are resorting to video interviews, and very few companies, in fact, call people personally these days, at least for the first level. Because most companies, even if it's within the city, sometimes they even call, they do a video call and then call people because they just want to understand how the candidate, performs initially in the first level interaction. And then based on whatever, outcome is, then they would probably call them over for a personal round of discussion. So that's how. And any questions? Sorry, I've been rattling off. So if you have any questions, please stop and feel free to ask. Should we continue with the?
Gayathri, you would prefer questions at the last or?
Yeah, no problem. In any case, I mean, even if you have anything to clarify in between, also you can stop me.
I just wanted to share when you mentioned different kinds of interview, it made me go back to the times when I was getting interviewed by Raymond's.
Okay, okay.
There, the procedure is it was called as a situational based interview.
Sure, sure.
Situational based was basically when I had entered the of this organization. I was first asked by the HR to be seated in the cafeteria, that is the food court.
Okay.
And I was waiting there for the HR to come and for around 10-15 minutes. So maybe that was the time when, of course, these people have their team members who keeps observing you, that how the candidate who has come for an interview is behaving. I
Yeah.
mean, how are you comfortable? How is your body language overall?
Sure,
Even if
sure.
you're just at a waiting period of time inside the company.
Right,
And
right.
after
No, no,
15
that's
minutes,
a very
the HR
interesting
comes.
thing that you shared because a lot of HR people would like to know what is the kind of interaction that they have at a casual level and not at a formal setting. So, if it's a casual kind of interaction, what is the interpersonal skill that they have and how they are able to, kind of communicate with the other, candidates who have come for interviews and things like that. So all these are being observed by HR. So that's a very interesting thing
Yes.
that you shared. Yeah.
So it's like you clicking a photograph of someone. So people are aware that someone is clicking a photograph. So we are like conscious. But when we are not aware
Yeah, yeah.
and we
That's
are
true.
getting clicked, so that's where the difference is. If they approach you, they test you on your psychological mindset that you know that you are coming prepared for an interview. So this is how you will bound to be behaving. But
Sure.
when you know that you are not into that interview process, so how is that you would behave? Because that is the fact of that individual. And
True.
then I was taken by the HR into a room wherein I was almost interviewed for 45 minutes to 1 hour professionally with the HR recruiter and the team lead.
Okay. Okay.
And after that, I was relieved out of. I had my discussion closing off, and then I had moved out of the organization. So
Oh,
this was something based as situational based interviews,
sure, sure, sure. Good. Thanks.
not
Thanks.
under my preparation. Yeah. So just
Okay.
wanted to.
Sharing.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks. So moving on from the different kinds of interviews. So we then yeah so now we'll be covering aspects which you need to keep in mind on the day of the interview. So what are the various things that you need to keep in mind while preparing for your d-day, basically the interview day? So this would be largely the complete research of the organization. You need to do a very detailed and thorough research. So that would involve understanding the various business verticals in the organization, the turnover of the company, the key people, culture, values, vision, mission, etc. So all these things you will need to be absolutely sure about and need to do a very detailed research to understand the organization. And then the other method to know more about the company is to talk to industry experts because there'll be quite a few people who are from a similar industry and you would have your own network. And also you can rely on people through your LinkedIn network, identify current or the previous employees if you're comfortable doing that, and talk to them to know what is the kind of culture that is there in the organization. Because most candidates, what they do is they ask the recruiter, if I'm the recruiter for the position. And if I'm an external recruiter, they end up asking the recruiter about what is the culture of the organization. So for us also, the organization is our client. So obviously, we would only talk good things about the client because we are going to be slightly biased, if not. So, but of course, we also try to, give the actual information, whatever we have seen as a company and how we have perceived the organization. So similarly, we will be giving back that information to the prospective candidates, so that they get a fair view of what they can expect when they join the organization. So that's how, and of course, you need to do your own research in terms of understanding who are the people that you want to talk to know more about the company. So, and of course, going through the company website is pretty much a given, and that will give a complete understanding of the different things that they do. And of course, a lot of information is now available on internet to go through the latest news on the organization and all of that. So all that information you'll need to be absolutely equipped with. And of course, a job description, if there is a detailed document, should go through that again. Make a note of all the questions that are related to the role. And also take an extra step and try out the company product or service if possible. So if it is a probably, Hindustan Unilever, a company like Hindustan Unilever, you don't need to have an introduction to their products because most of the products are pretty much available in our Kirana stores. So you can just walk into any Kirana store, buy their product and check out. But if it is a company which is probably, slightly more, touch point oriented, where you need to visit an experience store of a kitchen or a bath company. So that will give you a first-hand feel of how exactly the product is being displayed. What is the approach that they have when a client or a customer walks into their store? You will get an actual experience of the touch and feel of the product, which will give you a better understanding rather than viewing those pictures on the internet, because that will always physical touch points are much better for you to get a better interaction. You'll even be able to talk to those store employees and see what they think about, or what is the selling point for the company, what is the USP for the product, and things like that. So all these details you will get a fair idea once you visit the store. So, and of course, one day before the interview, one has to really focus on mind and body, eat healthy food and practice meditation, which is going to be very essential for for a good performance on the interview day. And of course, take care to dress well, dress smartly. You need to feel comfortable and happy in this particular you'll need to be able to perform well, so your mind and body needs to be well aligned for that. And of course, arrive early, figure out the logistics, and sometimes there are a lot of traffic delays and all of that. So it's very important that you take care of all that before you actually plan for the interview. And of course, any interview, I would really recommend that anybody reaches the venue at least 20 minutes prior, because most of the companies, large organizations have offices in large complexes where there are multiple entry points and checkpoints and all of that. So by the time you clear all that and reach the actual venue, it will take you at least about 15-20 minutes. So it's always better to be early. And so that's what I would recommend. And the next is while in the interview. So anything you'd like to share, or any thing that you feel I should have probably covered? Yeah, we'll continue. Okay. So while in the interview, you will need to be very clear and concise with your presentation, with the way you talk and the way you present yourself in a very positive manner, because you need to introduce yourself well, talk about your experiences in a very positive manner, and try and avoid sharing, negative things about yourself, because some people have this habit of saying a little bit of negative things about themselves just to feel a little humble or something like that. But then I think this is one opportunity where you should be open and transparent and talk about yourself in a positive manner, and not feel that you're probably boasting or talking out of the hat, or being very boastful about your experience. It's that you will need to talk about yourself, and because only in the conversation they will also come to know what is the kind of expertise that one carries. So that's very important to have a good introduction and a positive conversation. And also, at any point in time during the interview, if you think the conversation is not clear or anything is not clear, please never hesitate to seek clarity or ask them to repeat a question, because that will, you should not go wrong in the way you approach. So it is very important that you have complete clarity. And so it's always good to seek clarity whenever required. And also make an effort to display positive body language. So you need to sit erect, look attentive, maintain good eye contact, have a firm handshake. So all these are very important when you create a good impression physically as well. Rather than just talk about your own achievements, it's very important to display that kind of a confidence in person as well. And also, in terms of substantiating your interest in the role is very critical, because the HR or the hiring manager, the business head, whoever is being, who is currently interviewing you, he or she would need to get convinced that you are the right candidate for this particular role. And only if you show that interest, automatically, your level of commitment to getting that job also increases to that extent. And also, the person has to definitely throw light on all the aspects as far as their background and experience is concerned, and especially focus largely on the kind of achievements that one has had in the past experiences, because that is very critical. You need to give examples of how you have handled certain situations and how things have happened for you in terms of the way you handled certain stress situations or crises. So all that, it's very important that you relate very well in front of the interviewer. It's important. Yeah. And also, you'll need to completely avoid things like anything negative about the past employer. Do not fidget with things, do not twirl your hair and things like that. So all those things also show a little bit of a nervousness as far as the candidates are concerned. So it's better that you avoid doing such things, and don't check time, because the interviewer is in control of the process. So you should give it to them to be leading the conversation. So I think we should be conscious of the fact that the person, whoever is being interviewed, will need to give the best. Yeah. So, and why I also mentioned about your interest or the candidate's interest is because I've had a lot of situations where being a recruiter, some candidates say yes to going for the interview, but then they don't show up for the interview. So it is very, very disheartening to see that something like this happens. So a lot of occasions where I myself have probably convinced a candidate to go for an interview, but unfortunately they kind of fall through at the towards the end of the process, and they kind of back out of that interview. So it's very disheartening. So it's a complete waste of time for everybody, the person who's arranged the interview and whoever time has been blocked. So I think the person, whoever is going in for an interview, should be absolutely sure that they are willing to go for it in all earnest interest rather. So that is where we are. And then, so there are so towards the end of the conversation, I'm sure, both sides, there will be a lot of discussions that will happen. The interviewer is going to ask a lot of questions, and the interviewee also will be giving a lot of answers. So there will be very, very important thing that the interviewee should keep in mind is prepare a list of questions to ask the interviewer, because that's very critical. And a lot of sample questions that are there, I've just put up a few here. So it will be clearly depending on the organization and the job description as well. So one has to do a thorough understanding of what all they will need to clarify, and based on that, they will be then able to take a call whether to go ahead with the opportunity or not. So it's very important to understand, get a thorough understanding. So it's definitely mandatory to ask more questions and get clarity. So some of the sample questions are given here. So how does the job profile contribute to the overall company goals and core values? So that you can just probably think of whatever is relevant for the organization and as per the job role. I think it'll be good to ask very relevant questions. because that again will give the seriousness for this particular role, and I think that will really help when it comes to the good closure. Yeah. So, and towards the end of the interview, of course, once you have seen that this particular interview has come to a closure, so it's always important to have a little bit of a control over the closing, because typically what happens is the interviewer kind of says that, okay, thank you so much and I'll get back to you and things like that. So instead of them saying such a statement, I think it'll be good if you can take charge of the situation and then thank the interviewers, of course, and then also be prepared for a compensation discussion. Have a ballpark number in mind, and ensure that this is properly researched, because based on whatever interactions you've had with the recruiter, and you will know what is the budget for the role. So based on that, you can quote a number if asked. Then I mean, not say arbit things like as per company standard and as per industry norms, because that will then give a very negative picture about your candidature, because they would think you're probably desperate for the job, or you have not done your research properly in terms of what to expect out of the role, because what your current compensation and what is that these people are willing to offer as far as the budget is concerned. You will have some idea about it. So I think it's good to have a number discussion if that comes to that stage. And also, the keenness to explore the job should be reiterated towards the end of the conversation. And of course, you can also ask for a timeline when you can probably expect to hear back from them in terms of the feedback and or a response. And any additional information that is required or references, everything can be discussed towards the end of the interview. So that's how we would go about closing the interview. So basically, this presentation that I've taken you through is to cover a little bit of a touch point as to what to really look for when you go for an interview. And of course, I have actually designed an interview skills workshop, which is a three session, 2 hours each kind of a workshop, which would help you master the skills of cracking an interview. So that will cover the entire, different sets of interview types, and personal, be it video or panel, stress. So we'll cover all that in detail and do certain mock sessions as well. So that will give complete practice, and you'll be able to also cover the areas of improvement. So I think that way, the person would have more confidence in terms of dealing with the interview situation. And of course, there would be real-time feedback given in terms of how to manage certain situations. Yeah. So that's about it. And I think we are pretty much done with my presentation. So towards the end, thank you so much. I don't know if you can read the screen, but I would sincerely request you to read this. And if you find it funny, and laugh. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thanks everyone for participating in this session.